Yo, what up guys? It's Ben. I'm coming to you guys with a brand new video of this deck, my favorite deck officially. You guys don't know that yet because I haven't made a video on this, and sorry for not making a video in a while. Sorry for talking very fast right now. However, this is my favorite deck right now. It is probably one of the only decks I'm going to be playing for a while. A deck I will be forever working on from now on. And you're going to see this deck a lot, so if you like this deck, continue watching this channel. If you don't like this deck, please unsubscribe to this channel immediately. Because this is going to be one of the only decks on here. I really don't want to do DDD profiles unless I innovate the deck insanely much. Which I probably won't, considering I will be probably using my friend's build. Or a build like that, considering I haven't been in Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. And that is mainly the reason I haven't been playing or making videos. So recently I kind of just took a small hiatus. It was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It wasn't much, but I wasn't going to locals as much anyways. So I kind of fell out of the meta, and I was playing this deck prior, and the build I had prior wasn't very good at responding to big boards. And also it just had many other flaws, like inconsistencies and stuff, so I kind of just redesigned it, made it into this, and I feel like this is the build I kind of want to stick with. I might change a couple of things moving into the next format, however, it's essentially Traptrix, Naturia Tree, a couple of hands deck. It's mainly focusing on Naturia Sacred Tree, but I will get into that. So you play triple Mermello. So it's, of course, a really good card, really solid searcher, and it's actually fantastic. It's an insect, because we'll see later. 2 Diania. So of course we're playing Diania because 1, it brings back Mermello, and 2, it special summons, it brings back Mermello and it can set stuff. Sadly, it does for some reason miss timing when you summon it off Sacred Tree. Not sure why. Doesn't really make any sense, but, you know, Yugioh. So these two do have conflicting types, which is really good. And for our last Traptrix one is one you don't see very often. It is Traptrix Nepenthes. So, this deck mainly has, so as far as the meta concerns, I probably should have explained that first. It has a pretty decent ABC matchup, considering we play tons of trap holes, ways to stop our opponent. As long as you beat them before they beat you, or stop all their cards before they can beat you, you often have a pretty solid, game. However, that is a reality that we are never going to have. So, of course, our ABC matchup isn't wonderful. However, it isn't terrible either. Our Metal Foe matchup is usually okay, considering if we open decent, we can just keep popping their scales, and assuming they don't open like 7 or 9 scales, then we can just keep popping their scales, and any pendulum summon they have, we can stop with a trap hole. As far as Blue Eyes, that deck is kind of whoever goes first, kind of just has a huge leap in advantage. This deck isn't geared to beat Blue Eyes. In fact, it is kind of disregarding Blue Eyes as a deck. And whenever DDD comes out, this deck has a okay DDD matchup. However, it usually can't keep up with their speed. And then as far as Molmerat, the deck, this deck is actually just complete garbage against that deck unless you go first. So, of course, this isn't geared for that stuff. There will be an update once those decks come out, because this deck does need to be updated towards those. However, so Nepenthes, sorry about that, the little meta update. So Nepenthes is, or Nepenthes, I'm going to call it Nepenthes. Essentially what it reads is whenever a normal trap hole type, or trap hole card is activated except during the damage step, of course, you can add or special summon a Traptrix monster from your deck. So, of course, it has just this insane power cap, considering it can summon Diania. Against ABC, something cool that you can do is you can Nepenthes, maybe activate something on one of their A, B, or C's, trying to equip with Hanger. You can special summon Diania and set the Floodgate just in case they make ABC Dragon, because then if they try to tag out on your turn, you can Floodgate Trap Hold them and they can't do anything, which is extremely powerful. So you can just force them to tag out, and you just have a huge power play. So that's why Nepenthes is really solid. As well as that against Metal Foe, we can summon Traptrix Mermello, which is also very good. And usually we summon Traptrix Mermello because searching anything isn't that optimal, unless we have an insane amount of board presence and nothing to pop. For example, if we just stopped a Molmerat, we could definitely just add a Mermello to stop the next Molmerat, which is something I was definitely thinking of when I constructed this number. So yeah, we're only playing one though because it sucks to draw, and normal summoning it is absolutely awful. So we have other ways to get it out, and one in Sacred Tree and the other one you'll see soon. So continuing on the plant engine, we are playing 1 Glow Bulb and 3 Lone Fire Blossom. So this is kind of weird. You won't see this in almost any Traptrix deck, mainly because most people playing Traptrix actually have solid minds. So the reason behind this is, like, 1, it's very good with Soul Charge, which is kind of like a counterpoint, and 2, it can summon Nephentius in defense mode, as well as get rid of all metaphorical or fundamental versions of the card. So for example, if we were playing 3 Nephentius and 1 Lone Fire, the problem would be that whenever we activated Lone Fire, 1, if we had Soul Charge, it wouldn't do anything. 2, we would still have 2 copies in our deck that we could draw and would be absolutely dead in the late game. So we don't want it in the late game. However, just dumping every single copy out is very optimal, as well as that Lone Fire gives us a lot of options in the late game where we can Lone Fire into Dianea instead of Nephentius. As well as it also gives us the option to hold a couple in deck, or just get Glow Up Bulb and set up plays with Materia Sacred Tree, which is why we play the Glow Up Bulb. And also Glow Up Bulb helps with Nap Beast and Trish. So that's very helpful for outing cards. Moving on to a couple other hands, we play 2 Fire Hand, 1 Ice Hand. These are not extremely optimal. However, in the present format we're living in, which is ABC, Metal Foe, and Blue Eyes, these are not awful, which is pretty okay, considering if you open 1 Fire Hand, you can pop a lot of an ABC board. And if you open 1 Ice Hand, you can pop a lot of a Metal Foe board, as well as a Fire Hand, I guess. However, we're playing this number specifically because, 1, I never wanted to draw more than 1 hand, even though I do that all the time anyways. And 2, something fundamentally wrong with Ice Hand is that almost every single time you summon this card, you might not be able to pop something, where your opponent will always have a monster when you're summoning this card, or they'll always have a monster to remove this card. As in Yu-Gi-Oh! These days, every single piece of removal is either by monster effect or monster, which is quite conveniently how Fire Hand is very optimal. So of course we just want to use these reactively. However, there are better options, and whenever the new Predator plants come out, I would definitely suggest playing those, because those guys are nuts, and they're much better than these cards. I'm playing 1 Max C, and then 1 Kaiju. This really should be 2 Max C, considering Max C is very powerful in this deck, considering you can Naturia Sacred Tree it off for Nephentius, which, if you have like a Floodgate Trap Hole, Max C and Naturia Sacred Tree, you can actually set up a solid board from a bad hand, which is really cool. However, I don't have a second Max C, so I played a Humongous instead. And something cool about Humongous is that it is a insect. So if this happens to go on your opponent's monster and you Soul Charge it back, it is an insect, so you can pop it for Dianea or Nephentius from the deck, which is really cool for killing people. As well as, there was one application where I tribute summoned this card because I tribute summoned this card because I had 2 swords I had swords and concealing light my stuff, and I tribute summoned this card to go for game, and it was absolutely amazing. I love this card. I did that online though, sadly not at locals. 2 Pot of Duality. Pot of Duality is just a good card because our deck is so slow and mainly only special summons on our opponent's turn, or when we want to special summon, or later in the game most likely. So going first, this card is almost like it's actually never dead unless we have Lone Fire. And even then, sometimes we'll still use this card if we have like another normal summon. So yeah, it's a good card. Double Twin Twister. I wanted to play Twin Twister over Cosmic Cyclone or MST, or more specifically MST, because this deck does always have a lot of cards in hand, and we really do want to pop both scales rather than just one. So that's why this card is extremely optimal, because Mermello can't always do the full job, and we want a card that would do the full job anyways, rather than half the job when Mermello did the other half, if that makes any sense. So we're playing 2 Instant Fusion, 1 Soul Charge. I was considering 3 Instant Fusion, even though I don't own the 3rd Instant Fusion. I would consider playing 3, because it's just such a powerful card. Even with only 1 Norden, it is so good. I would maybe try Thousand Eyes, considering it's just an out to anything. And then Soul Charge is just absolutely nuts in this deck. If you open Lone Fire Blossom Soul Charge, like almost every time you have this in any deck, it is absolutely bonkers. So in this deck, you do have to thin out like everything. However, we get 4 summons, and we happen to play exactly 4 plants outside of Lone Fire itself. So essentially, we dump every single plant from our deck, and then we make Rafflesia and Gnatbeast, which is kind of broken. So the only way they can really out that is via monster that has... No, they can't really out it. They have to have a trap card. Yep, that doesn't happen. You don't see those anymore, except in this deck. And then one Upstart to make it a 39-card deck. I would be playing a better card, but I didn't find one. I really don't want to play Upstart this format, but it's still a card. 3 Sacred Tree, the best card in the deck. So good. If you open Sacred Tree Murmello against any deck in the meta, you have such a powerful opening hand if they don't Twin Twister you. That is a big problem. Don't let them Twin Twister you. So Sacred Tree is so nuts. I would definitely play this card. I honestly would just play this deck for this card. This card is my favorite card. It enables strangely cool OTKs, considering it can activate during both players' turn, and also during your own turn. So it's kind of like a prime in a way, but better, which just makes it nuts. It's such a strong card, and I think it's totally underrated. It just needs to find a meta deck it can fit in, and this card will be one of the best cards in the game. 2 Call of the Haunted brings back Diania and Murmello, which gives you virtually whatever you want. Also, you can do cool plays with Call of the Haunted Ice Hand when they Twin Twister you, and Call of the Haunted Fire Hand. You can also Call of the Haunted stuff like Norden when it goes to the grave, which is really cool as well. 2 Fiendish Chains, these should be strikes. I do not own strikes. Fiendish Chains. These are awful, but still. 2 Mind Crush, these should be Dimension Barriers. I don't have Dimension Barriers. Or Dimensional Barrier? Dimensional Barrier. I don't have Dimensional Barrier. We're playing these instead. And as for Pot of Desires, which is another expensive card, I am not going to buy. The card is definitely good, and I would try it in this deck. However, I feel like I'd get unlucky with it and hit triple Murmello. However, it's definitely something that I would suggest trying. I don't think it could be that awful, but honestly, hitting a part of your engine that you can't Emerald back is quite difficult. However, Mind Crush isn't bad. Moving back to Mind Crush, I would suggest that you could play this card even if you do have Dimension Barriers. I think this card is like pretty good. It's really good against Blue Eyes, which is our one matchup we can't really fight. It's solid against Metal Foe. It's pretty bad against ABC, however, it has its uses. So I feel like this card is just really powerful and really solid. 2 Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. Kind of a nuts card. It's okay, but like it's not that great. But like I'm gonna move the LDs aside. It's not that great. However, it's really good against ABC. And though we already play these are our 5 trap holes. I would definitely take out 1 Nightmare for something else. For either a Floodgate or a Time Space. Most likely a Floodgate because Time Space isn't extremely great in this deck. And in the best condition, I might just end up taking both of these out if ABC leaves the meta for a second Time Space and a second Floodgate. Because, you know, those cards are good. Or even just a 3rd Floodgate and a 2nd Time Space. However, I don't own any more Floodgates, so that's a problem. And then we play 1 Torrential, 1 Solemn, 1 Vanities. I wanted to put in some Floodgates in this deck, however, I felt that macro and stuff, the ones that are just harmful to every single deck in the meta, those ones are not very fittable in this deck considering we need our Grave. And stuff like Imperial is way too inversatile, so I don't want to play stuff like that. So the best one would probably be Anti-Spell Fragrance, but I do not own any of those, and honestly, it's not that great against your own deck considering your comeback mechanics are all spells. And Diania. Moving on, we are playing for the spells and the monsters in the extra deck. We're playing Norden. That's the only fusion we play. We're playing 1 Underground Fighter Balmung, so you may think this card sucks, mainly because it does. However, I found that it's like the best level 4, considering what you can do with it on turn 1. Essentially, it's a cool card because you can do Norden plays with this. If you open Norden Lone Fire, you can do cool stuff with this. So that's why we're playing it. Plus, I can bring back Norton, so that's another plus side. We're playing one Nat Beast, because Nat Beast is just dumb. We're not playing another level 5, but we probably should. One Black Rose. This should probably be the other level 5. However, I wanted to play Black Rose because we side Ghost Ogre. Sorry, can't speak today. We side Ghost Ogre, and I wanted a way just to kind of nuke the board. And regardless, we play a lot of cards that are suboptimal against a lot of the main decks, such as Traptrix, Chapel Nightmare, Mind Crush. So just putting in Ghost Ogre sometimes just as a card to summon Black Rose isn't the worst thing. And then Trish, don't own one, borrowed it from my friend, make it a lot. Ramsey, Rafflesia, Dweller, Emerald, Diamond Dire, Double Castel, Utopia, Lightning, and then F-Zero. F-Zero is probably coming out, it doesn't do much. These two are nuts. Double Castel, I don't think double is necessary. Like, it's not necessary. However, I feel like it is useful, and it's better than any other rank 4 I could play, so I feel like it gives it some use. Diamond Dire is pretty good for popping back row. Emerald is just good for recycling everything. Dweller isn't bad either. And then Rafflesia, of course, is nuts. And then this might come out soon too because ABC is dying. And the side deck's kind of just irrelevant piece of garbage. But thank you all for watching, and yeah, this is the Phantom Armor signing out. See you all, peace.